Hey, good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic Live. I'm your host, Neil Johnson. So excited to be with you and share the news with you as always. This is going to be a great show. You might want to get your champagne out or your sparkling cider as we go over just how monumental this win was for Donald Trump. I have one of the nation's top pollsters, actually a guy who called this election spot on, is going to be on the show. He's waiting backstage, but really quickly, I do need to mention my sponsor, and that's Verity Metals. Folks, I'm a big believer in gold and silver. You do what you want. I'm not telling you how to invest your money, but I want to see the end of the Fed. That's part of my whole thing. And I believe if that ever happens, precious metals will only be worth more as people move to gold-backed currency, not this fiat currency that we currently have. So Matt's number, and you're going to talk directly to Matt, the owner over there, when calling and mentioning my show. It's 480-717-9081. And go get yourself some gold, silver, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I've got all this, golden or silver eagles. I've got 1.5 ounce coins. I don't know. It's just different things. I figure if the economy, the other thing is if it ever goes to heck in a handbasket, I will at least have tradable precious metals. So anyways, I'm going to pull this out and bring in our special guest. And that's Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Polling. Mark, good to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. So give my audience, if they're unfamiliar with you, just your background and what you do now. Give them that 1-2 minute synopsis.
Yeah, sure. I came from outside the polling industry. I was in the Navy, financial services, worked in early stage companies. And it turns out I'm really good at polling because I have the number one qualification, which is that I actually can look around me and critically assess reality, and I have integrity. And that's really basically 95% of pollsters are lacking that. So there are a few of us banging on the drum that nope, don't believe the mainstream media. They want Harris to win, and they're going to give you crap numbers. And that's exactly what happened. And, me, Rich Barris, guys over at Trafalgar, we did a really great job this time. And is it because we have some super secret analytical weapon? They don't. No, it's because we're not schmucks trying to shill for the regime in Washington, D.C., basically.
So I specifically, since you're talking about that, talk about this Seltzer poll out of Iowa, which was the biggest boondoggle of this election. And I said, when that poll came out, I said, Trump's going to win Iowa by 15 points. Now I was off. Okay. What was it? 13 points something. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But yes, they said she was
going
to win by 10. Wasn't it 10 points she was supposed to win Iowa by? That's a 24-point swing.
Yeah. This is in the ranked list of consequential things that happen this cycle. Ann Seltzer would be at the absolute bottom of the list because she polls Iowa. Iowa wasn't a competitive state. But the reason it's one of the top ones on the list was because it was one of the few remaining psyops that the Democrats had to play. And listen, all of the pain and discomfort in October, all the headlines about Puerto Rican jokes and Nazis and stuff like that, I don't think that changed any Trump voters, period, whatsoever. I think they crawled over broken glass. Listen, New Jersey would not have turned out the way it did if people cared about Puerto Rican jokes. 4%. And so what this was, in my opinion, was their way of giving, I think there was a lot of whipping their voters into a froth. And then I think that there was a lot of an attempt to provide copium. And that's why this is so important, is because the most patently false copium, and yet all of the Democrats happily consumed it. This poll was released on Friday night before Election Day weekend, late enough that nobody could challenge it, early enough to get it into the Sunday morning news cycles. And it was the top trending thing on Twitter. This woman basically tweeted about somebody misspelling her name, and it got 40,000 likes. So they were passing this thing around and patting each other on the back in jubilation that the entire polling industry is wrong. The entire polling industry that's shown themselves year after year to support Democrats. But no, they were wrong. They were somehow underemphasizing Kamala Harris's vote. And it's because all the voters in Iowa wanted abortions. And it's not right. She had a bad poll. And if she had just put out her poll that she had in July instead, that had Trump up 18, and she spiked it because she didn't want to put that out.
Wow.
Right there was a signal that her credibility was gone. But if she had put that poll out or just compared the two of them and said, well, what did I screw up? I must not have sampled enough people here or something. There was something she did wrong, obviously. Yeah. She would have been right. she probably is a pretty good pollster considering she's done it time and time again in Iowa. So I think the only assumption I can make is they got to her because listen, we do put out outliers. I put out Trump +2 in Arizona. And I said to myself, I said it publicly in videos, that this sample doesn't feel right. It's probably an outlier. It's too left leaning. It was 4 points to the left of the final results. We're talking about 17 points. It doesn't happen. Statistically impossible.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I liked about your polling was you would do the daily tracking and I would watch those numbers. And sometimes you would get an outlier in a day where Kamala Harris would actually go up.
Mhm.
But when you average those results over time, you're able to get a pretty clear picture of what's going on with the electorate out there. And what I find interesting about this, Mark, and I've watched polling extensively. Now, for those of you in my audience who don't believe that any polls are accurate and right, okay, some are. Okay, I really want to make that point. And Mark, you called this election basically spot on in national popular vote. Can you give me your numbers versus final?
I think the last count was 2.4, the one I saw, and I'm not sure how much is outstanding. I don't think there's that much left, so I think it's probably going to settle somewhere north of 2. And people are going to say, "Oh, who's the most accurate?" And they're going to cherry pick final results. But the point is that most of these pollsters for August and September were way out in left field, giving Kamala Harris like +4s, 5s, and 6s. So what you should do is average a pollster's poll, and we were putting out week after week, Trump +2, Trump +2, Trump +2. Our final call was Trump +3, but that was rounded in the crosstabs. It literally says 2.4. So I don't think Real Clear Politics is caught up yet. I'm pretty sure it's 2.4. It's exactly right. But again, the national popular vote, it's important because I poll nationally more than I poll the states. It's easier to do. We have more data. And so I'm more confident in that result. It's a lot harder to do states. But the story here is that the states, the pollsters all missed again by about 2 points and change. And since the battlegrounds were tight, that was enough to allow them to put out Kamala Harris winning in almost every single mainstream media electoral college map.
Yes.
And what we did in the states is absolutely incredible. I'll just read off some of the stats. I just updated them this morning, and it really isn't impossible to get. And listen, these have 3-point margin of errors. That means if I say Trump's getting 47, it could be 44 or it could be 50.
Yeah.
That means 19 out of 20 times it should be within that range. So we called, we polled 14 states. We polled 41 times. We called 13 out of the 14 states for the correct candidate. And Michigan, we missed because we had Harris up 8, but Trump won it by 1.4. So we're still within the margin of error. We called 3 of them.
Not 8, but 0.8, right?
0.8. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. And then we had 11 out of 14 within the margin of error. And 2 of those that we missed were Ohio and Texas. So we had Trump up 7 and 6, and he got like 14. I mean, okay, like sue us, guys. Like, you know what I mean? But our average polling error on all the states was 0.7% to left. And if you take Texas out, it was only 0.1% to left. And in the battlegrounds, we were 0.8% to left. And what was crazy is that a lot of that was driven by Arizona. We actually missed as many states to the left as we missed to the right. And so what that means is that we had no bias. If we were 2 right on half of them and 2 left on the other half, 0 bias. And that's the problem. Like polling, if you look at my numbers versus the Real Clear Politics aggregate, you know, some of my states are 2 right, some of my states are 2 left, but the average is exactly where the final results are. But all of these statistical modelers, they have them directionally more correct, but then they're just 2 points too left. They overestimated Harris's support, just like they always do.
Now, and folks, do me a favor, please smash that like button, the little thumbs up, and just chat in with where you're from. Just help get that chat rate up. We've already got 2,500 of you on. Love to get this stream up to about 4,000, and that'll definitely help. Because I think this information is important because we go through this anxiety before elections when we're looking at these polls. And Mark, even, you know, like I followed Rasmussen and you even said earlier, like you were in the past, you typically lean more Democrat. So your numbers were not only not leaning Republican, but had leaned Democrat. And you said that, typically we've leaned Democrat. Now, what have you done? I know polling methodologies have changed. So what have you done to like change your inputs to get better outputs? Because Trump voters kind of, I know this happened with Brexit. And this is one of the things that Trafalgar did, was identified those people who would not say they were voting for Trump. What have you done with your methodologies over the last few years?
I think there is some brand impact. I think that a lot of people have answered Rasmussen polls because we poll more than anybody. We're still polling now, even though the election's over. And there's hundreds of thousands of people that like to answer our polls. And so over time, we kind of know what they look like. And then also on the online panels, I would say that there is data drift over time. Like maybe my online panel will become more or less Trumpy. And so that is a constant concern. But generally speaking, when you poll continuously, every 4 years, you don't have to redefine the wheel. And so I think that's one of our advantages. I look at a previous cycle, I look at 2022, and I say, all right, well, we had the electorate Democrat +4. It turned out to be Democrat +2, so we should shift. Yeah. And we did that. But one of the trends really that happened after 2020 is that once Biden got in and everybody had buyer's remorse, it was very clear that our polls were being flooded by too many Trump supporters. And that's a problem that most people in the industry don't have. Their problem is they have way too many Biden supporters. And when I say this, I mean, it's like you can correct it by waiting for party. But the problem is that when Trump gets more independents and Democrats and party starts to mean less, you have to come up with something else. And so what we said was, well, recalled vote will more accurately capture whether people support Trump or not than party. And so there's pluses and minuses to that. What'll happen is it'll emphasize people who change their minds, but it makes it harder to find a signal for new people and figuring out how they're going to break and making sure you have the right level of them. But I think we made the right call, obviously, because we nailed it. And a lot of the pollsters, I mean, New York Times even came out and said, well, we think we're underestimating Trump support and we could correct it by waiting for the recalled vote, but we're not going to because reasons. And it turns out they should have. So
yeah, well, they were off. And I think what's interesting too is that, one of the things they admitted to was that they did not have enough white males in their polling. And obviously that's going to shift it in this election. I want to talk about this really quickly, Mark. Folks, I just dropped a video. Mitch McConnell is not leaving. Okay. And what I mean by that is he is trying to get his hand selected people in there. And that's the Johns, John Cornyn and John Thune. They're bad. I just dropped a video on that. And this is exactly going against the mandate that Trump has. That's what I don't think there's any worse body right now than the U.S. Senate politics. They're horrendous.
Well, I think specifically Republicans, to be honest with you. I'm not making any friends that'll probably hurt my business, but they're the problem. And I'll tell you, there is I don't know if we can talk about it, but
totally, whatever.
Things happen in elections, and yet time and time again, what you see is Republican politicians blocking them. But what is incredible is Trump does have a mandate. The entire country shifted 8 points to the right, 7 points, whatever. It depends on how you measure it. States like New Jersey shifted 11 points to the right. This is a mandate. Across the country, Trump changed millions of minds. And for the first time, the Democrat mindset is not a majority. And yet we've asked the question, is the Republican Party the party of Donald Trump and the Make America Great Again movement? 80% of Republicans say yes. And what's crazy is, even despite those shifts, the Republicans didn't do better down ballot. They didn't really pick up any House seats. They got a couple of Senate seats, but in my opinion, they should have gotten at least 3 or 4 more.
Yes.
And what's weird is how it always seems that the Senate profits when they're narrowly divided. And with a Republican 60 to 40 seat majority in the Senate, I think those people do a lot worse business, but that's just me. But what's crazy is Republican voters do not get what they want. They want the government shut down. They don't get it. They want the border shut down. They don't get it. At a certain point, you have to question, well, are Republican politicians working actively against the interests of the Republicans? I think that's one of the reasons that Republicans didn't pick up more stuff. Talk about the National Senate Leadership campaign funds. They threw money at races like Maryland and didn't in Arizona. And they'll say, oh, she's a
50
bad
million.
candidate. No, she did better than Blake Masters, and she didn't have any support. This is
Yes.
actually happening in many, many, many down ballot races where I've heard lots of stories about MAGA candidates who want to run, and the establishment is hostile to them, makes them take expensive consulting packages, saddles them with people, with consultants that aren't doing the right thing. And so you have to wonder, is the biggest conflict in DC the fact that the establishment is the enemy of a candidate that will change the status quo? And Republicans aren't dumb. Like the Republican rating for Mitch McConnell, he's only got a 7% very favorable rating.
Yes.
That's actually less than Nancy Pelosi. Republicans actually like Nancy Pelosi more, very favorable. So
that's wild to think about. I mean,
Yeah.
when you consider Nancy Pelosi, and now we're looking at this whole race, and obviously there's only 3 people running. Okay. So I got to throw this out there for folks. I mean, you've got Rick Scott, you've got the 2 Johns, Cornyn and Thune. And I know some people are like, well, Rick Scott voted for red flag laws in Florida at one time. Yes, but he voted against them on a national level. There were more protections offered in the Florida bill. I would like somebody that's 100%, but Rick Scott is 86% on the Liberty score. He's CPAC lifetime of 90%. And yet we see that the Senate is working against this. And I did repost on my X account that's down below. And I also follow Mark and have reposted some of his stuff recently, so you can easily follow him there. What's your X handle just up?
I don't have a cute one. I probably should get one. Open to suggestions, but it's Mark_R_Mitchell, just my name.
Okay. So you can follow him over there. His polling has been phenomenal. It's one of the things that I use to give you guys reports throughout the election cycle. But this is what we're up against. So Rick Scott is by far the best of the 3. There's a vote on Wednesday, and you've got to light up Capitol Hill with calls on this issue because, the pressure campaign is working. I'm hearing that people are actually changing their votes. And I know people think that the phone calls don't matter, but the reality is they do for the senators because they figure.
I want to talk quickly about conservative purism and say that, in my opinion, the last couple of days have very clearly shown us that Trump has learned that it's more about integrity and loyalty than it is about individual points on policy. And so the leadership is off the charts here, different than it was in 2016. And I think that that's a good sign for voters. Here's the thing. He has Tulsi Gabbard and RFK on board with him.
Yes.
Those people probably disagree on more than they agree with. And yet Trump has selected the right role for them. They are working in concert with the administration. And so you can't nitpick something that Rick Scott may or may not have done if it all comes down to what does the Trump administration want? And I'm pretty sure that you should trust them right now. One of the things that I've seen a lot of is all of the stuff coming from like former DeSantis supporters and stuff like that, which really got to a fevered pitch before the election. And we can quibble about whether they were paid or not. But what conservatives don't understand is that you can't take 100% stance on any of these issues. The Democrats understand that to get their will, it has to be done incrementally. And when you say, oh, well, Trump is not 100% against abortion, you have to understand that the country is not ready for people to be 100% against abortion. Quite frankly, what the country is ready for, and I'm saying like probably sending it to the states is the right thing. But if you're saying, well, I want an anti-abortion candidate and he's got to come in and wave his wand and fix abortion, the country's only ready for a 3-month ban right now. That's what it's ready for, basically. And you can't just come in and say, well, I'm going to blow everything up because that's my pet issue. You have to understand that the number one issue facing the country, even though abortion might be your number one issue, the number one issue facing the country is the voters aren't getting what they want because DC is essentially de facto occupied territory. Okay.
Yes.
And that is what Trump is going after. And you should probably let him get what he wants right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with this. And my audience knows I am 100% pro-life. I've marched at abortion clinics. I mean, I've done sidewalk counseling. I've done all this. I am big on the life issue. But the reality is like incrementally moving the ball. Like some people in the conservative movement will say, no, the three exceptions are out. And I'm saying it's 90+% of abortions are not the three exceptions. So if I can save 90% of the children, I would completely take that right now.
Yeah.
I would totally take it. I mean, think of all the lives you could save, and then people become these purists on these issues, which I get. I understand the thought process behind it, but I also understand the reality that we're living in. And to your
Yeah.
point on that, Mark, I want to bring this in really quick and get your comments on this, because I believe that we're starting to get that as conservatives, and I don't think the Democrats are, because this is Mark Levine. He posted this out, and he's talking about how Democrats need to wake up, right? And this is the map of the shift to Trump in New York City. Okay. And he says the surge didn't happen in places like this and so on. But I love this tweet right down here. Max Meyer said, "Sir, your borough is currently prosecuting Daniel Penny for keeping the subways safe for people without Escalade drivers. You haven't said anything. Oh, wait, you defended the freak attacking women on the subway. You are a fraud. New York will continue to go right." And I believe this defines the Democrat Party right now. I have listened to so many meltdowns on the media ex post facto. And the reality is they don't get this or want to accept this. Okay. But this New York was shifting red in massive ways, and they don't get it. They want to tell you that crime is down. No one buys that.
Yeah. There's a new paradigm now. And one of the things that I would point to is think back to Tuesday and then compare it to November 3rd, 2020. Everybody was watching Fox News. Everybody was hinging on every word that Brett Baer said when he called Arizona early, right?
Yes.
Last Tuesday, nobody cared. Last Tuesday, everybody was watching independent streamers and making their own assessments based on the betting market and their own analysis of what counties reported. So they have lost their ability just in 4 years, and really in just a year, in my opinion, to enforce these psychological operations. And I think we have a lot of that to put on Elon Musk, because we can say more or less whatever we want on YouTube. We can say a lot on Facebook if you're not shadow banned, but those outlets aren't the same as Twitter. What Twitter is for is dialogue. And the dialogue is now free, and it is a meritocracy. And so
Yes.
that's what these people aren't going to be able to escape. I'm pretty sure what you just put up was on its way to being ratioed too. And so listen, as long as the traffic keeps going up on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure Blue Sky is not going to challenge them in any meaningful way. But Twitter is lit right now, and everybody needs to be there. Like,
Yes.
get off. I'm sorry. Get off Truth and Getter. Echo chambers do not serve this country. And so if you're having a dialogue, you're helping people come to the realization, a consensus agreement of what reality is. And that's what's dangerous, because reality is being shoved in the faces of people who used to be able to just piss on us and say it's raining.
Yes. No, that's 100% accurate. I mean, we are, we're in different times, and independent media has driven this. And thank you all for hanging with me after 2020, because we couldn't say what we wanted to on YouTube, and it's still to a certain extent not the same as Twitter for sure, or X, I guess it's called now. But the people who followed my channel since day one saw me work up to 2 strikes on multiple occasions. They saw I'm currently demonetized. They've seen me be demonetized. Wow. The channel was almost wiped out. I have 3 channels, and they were all in danger of being wiped out at 2 strikes. But my audience has stuck with me, and I quit because I had to quit producing content. I mean, I knew that to save the channel, I had to just basically quit producing content for a time till those strikes faded away. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing they would do to silence our voices. And I knew that because I believed that Trump would win. And I believed that when he won, that would be the chance to start changing these things. And I just heard his speech the other day about free speech. It was like 6 minutes long. I should really drop a video on that because it was phenomenal. And he's talking about Section 230 and the protections that these companies get. And the whole idea behind that being is they're not publishers, so they're not making publishing decisions. They're just platforms, but they're not acting like platforms. And so, like I still have, when I die, don't let me vote Democrat. Because back in 2020, Mark, I mean, a number of the pollsters had called 2020 for Trump. And I looked inside those numbers, and I got to be frank. I mean, I thought he'd won, and I just looked at the numbers from the Wisconsin Senate race. Now, I'll say this much: I believe the RNC did a much better job, and True the Vote and organizations like this to clean voter rolls. It was huge. That was so big, folks. I don't even understand if people understand how big that is. I think we would have had 2020 all over again had those efforts not taken place. People like Mike Lindell laid it all on the line.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I love Mike. I mean, he's still great. And so I'll mention him real quick, mypillow.com/lumberjack, promo code lumberjack. Go support Mike for all the great work that he's done over the course of time. And he had that big win in Arkansas where they got rid of the machines. Their paper ballots, hand counting. So these are
we actually polled for them. We're the ones that went into Arkansas and polled on that topic so they could run with it and make the legislative change there.
Really?
Colonel Conrad Reynolds. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. I did not know that. I knew Conrad Reynolds. I didn't know that you guys had done the polling in that.
Well, who else is going to poll about election integrity? That's the problem, right? So nobody will. That's the issue.
Let me see. I want to talk. You had something up on your website I wanted to pull up here quickly. Which was dealing with the.
Before we do, let me make a quick comment about that stuff. I think you're right. I think 230s absolutely interesting to look at. Although I think if you had a really good CIA, NSA, FBI, whoever director, that you would probably elicit quite a bit of change in the social media companies, especially Reddit. I think I'm just making assumptions here, right?
Yep.
And then also, I do think something that people haven't talked about. I think Trump will come in and make major changes in the economy. It's a big part of his platform. But some of the stuff he's promised to do are massively deflationary and go against the interests of major banking institutions.
Yes.
Just the deportation thing alone will cause potentially a housing valuation crash, cause lots of debt to be written off. And we already are not in a really good economic situation. Price to equity ratio is really high right now. Case-Shiller index is really high right now. And the yield curve just reverted, which means we're probably having a recession soon anyways. All of that I say because it's a lot easier to ruin your business for luxury beliefs and virtue signaling when a rising tide lifts all boats. And if all of a sudden, for instance, Disney, who put their thumb on the scales with 538, thinks that they're going to be able to like squeak out, compete with Universal, do whatever, when the economy starts to crash and people have to take tough decisions about how they spend their money in an environment where the entire country is moving towards Trump politically, even without going after that Section 230 stuff. I think a economic reassessment of what's going on is going to affect these people.
On that note, and I've been telling my audience about this too, because back in 1980, when Ronald Reagan won, the economy didn't just get rosy, folks. In fact, rates continued to climb. There was a number of things that took place there. So I think a lot of people are like, wow, Trump's in and everything's just going to change for the better right away. And I just want to give you fair warning. That's probably not the way this is going down.
Yeah, no, it's going to be chaos.
What are price to earnings ratios right now? I mean, they were up around 30. They're still up. I think they're over 30 still.
Oh, I don't know.
And historically, you would look at companies for a 12 to 15 as a good buy. And that was kind of what you were looking at in the S&P. And for those who don't understand, price to earnings is just the price of the stock, the time the earnings. So if let's say you're at $1 a share in earnings, it would take, and the stock price is $15. That's a P ratio of 15. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. You take a valuation when you sell a business, a multiplier times the earnings. And, no one's going to go out there in private world America and go, oh, yeah, I'll give you 30 times the earnings of your business. It just doesn't happen. And it is happening in the stock market.
30. It's over 30 now.
It is.
Yeah.
See? Still. I mean, there's no way that doesn't correct over time, people. I can't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. So, um, I wanted to bring this in. This is an article, Mark, that you had put together, and I want to contrast this. So, how much difference did campaign ads make? Not much, voters say. And then this also here out of the Washington Examiner, how Kamala Harris plowed through $1 billion. This is insane. And if you don't think this is how they would have run the government, she spent $100,000, over 100,000, six figures. I don't know what the total was, on a set for a podcast.
Yeah, right.
Donald Trump just showed up at Joe Rogan in front of the lousy drapes that he has and swung the vote more that way. But in October, weeks before the 2024 election, the word was out. Vice President Kamala Harris had fundraised north of $1 billion. The haul, the New York Times reported upon breaking the news, was historic because of the short period of time, just 3 months, that it flooded in. It was ultimately no use. On Tuesday, of course, Donald Trump won. And he did so with far less cash. And I believe that this alone is reason enough that people should have voted for Donald Trump when you look at how much more effective he was with the use of dollars. Can you imagine what they would have done with your tax dollars?
Yeah. It is wild how the Democrats can always get that much money. And it's always in small dollar donations too, which is crazy because,
like
it's really weird. Yeah. Don't sue us. In terms of how you voted in this year's presidential election, how much were you influenced by TV commercials for or against either candidate? 46% said not at all. 29% said not much. So that's 75% there. The thing is that sometimes with these kind of questions, the absolute number doesn't tell you much. It's more of like the signal in the demographics.
Yes.
And so only 37% of Democrats said not at all, but Republicans, it was 52%, independents, 51%. So that's the important thing. 82% of independents said not much or not at all. And that's the people she needed to reach. And I think this has been a continuation of the theme we've been talking about. It's one, they've lost their ability to reach these people. And part of it, column A, is that the Biden administration was horrible and people are hurting in a way that isn't reflected in the issue questions. And then the other is independent media for the win. They've burned the credibility of every elite institution, including the media mouthpieces. 60% of voters think the media is the enemy of the people. So you're going to run an ad on that channel and think you're going to change people's minds. The answer is absolutely no. So independents were shutting out campaign ads. Now, ostensibly, this is Republican campaign ads too. But that's because people are making decisions based on their own research. They're making decisions based on discussions they have with people in their community. Really bad if you're an incumbent and the administration before you sucked. But then in thinking about this year's presidential election campaign, which is closer to your feeling, that people will only be happy if their campaign candidate wins or if you're glad the campaign was over no matter what. Again, the headline number is 62% wanted their candidate to win, 29% just wanted it over. But the people who say that campaign ads had a lot of impact are people that by far said that they'd only be happy if their candidate wins. 80% say of people who say that campaign ads counted a lot. So what this is that all of the people watching news tuned into MSNBC, looking for desperate copium. Those are people that think that the campaign ads counted a lot in their decision. So there's the NPCs and there's everybody else.
Yes. Well, and you look at this, it's not only the age of media dying, celebrity endorsements is dying. I mean, Disney's dying. The culture war. You saw a shift this time around where Trump was winning the culture. You now have the San Francisco 49ers doing a Trump dance in the end zone.
That's right.
It's the culture is shifting to this movement, and they see it.
I think it was there the whole time since August of 2021 too. FJB chants in the stadium. I think that's when Donald Trump won.
Wow.
And he can't blame Kamala Harris. I mean, she got $1 billion, and she's not a perfect candidate by any stretch of the imagination. But she's certainly actually better than Biden. Now, Biden probably would have done better in Pennsylvania, but I think his campaign would have been a laughable wreck because people would have demanded something out of him, right? And so you got to say with the hand of cards she was dealt, she got really close. And I don't know if that's Democrat electioneering or, the media was somewhat effective. But I wonder about that $1 billion. I mean, there's there's all those like tens of billions of dollars that went to EV charging stations and not a single one got built. That's all people got paid off. So, but
Yes.
then she actually did spend money, in my opinion, for all of these movie actors and actresses that came out. And I have to say, well, maybe she spent the money incorrectly, or maybe they completely saturated the ad market and saw that it wasn't working and had to do something with the money and left it all on the playing field. Like that could be true. And obviously it's fun to laugh at them because it didn't work because nobody cares about Mark Ruffalo. But there it is. It's like they lost the culture, like you said, and they have nothing left. And now you watch the mainstream media outlets and it's kind of pathetic. They haven't been giving talking points yet. And they don't know where to go. They're talking about Russia. They're talking about election integrity issues.
Everything comes back to Russia.
Trying to figure out some constitutional way to prevent Trump from becoming president is laughable.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And, I mean, I am so glad, Mark, here was my greatest prayer. And I'm so glad that this happened. One, that the election would be determined on election night. Number two, that Trump would win the popular vote. I wanted it to be resounding. Yeah. He took all 7 swing states. That was big. I really thought he was going to take Virginia, New Hampshire. I really did. I was talking to people on the ground there. Maybe that was my copium, but nonetheless, he didn't. But yeah. I want you to comment on this, Mark. I'm going to bring this in because I think something went wrong in Wisconsin, and it's this. So, this. Milwaukee, I
haven't seen this yet. Yeah.
Okay. And so here's look at this. This reminds me of 2020 right here. Right here. Look at this. That is not normal. That's not normal. Okay. And it was late in the game. Okay. And so, and that came out of Milwaukee. That was where that vote count came. A large update, 109,000 votes. And I remember earlier in the day, they were having issues and, there were 35,000 votes that needed to be rescanned and broken seals on tabulators. And why do we have these stupid election machines? Americans, if you poll Americans on that, just in general, like across the country, do they want election? I know they want voter ID by like 86% want voter ID.
They want everything. They want audits. They don't want the machines. They want investigations. We've literally polled on everything. Half of Americans. Now we said, all right, how concerned are you the outcomes will be affected by cheating? You got 66% of people saying yes. But we've asked even more binary questions that have a higher hurdle to clear. And we had 49% of voters outright saying that they think their election officials are enabling fraud. That's big. Wow. And they want prison sentences for them. And so the big lie is not going to work anymore. And we haven't tested election integrity after this election yet. And we're going to. Trust me, we're not dropping this.
Yeah.
But I don't think the issue is going to go away. And quite frankly, Trump should have won by more and should have picked up many more races down ballot. If you just do the math, so let's just say the whole country moved 7 points to the right. Okay. What is 7% of 435? Should have been a 30-seat pickup. You know what I mean? Like that's, and so it wasn't. And why not? Well, it's because a lot of this stuff, quite frankly, it's the Republicans too with the gerrymandering and the election laws, like favors the incumbent. But this should have been a massive mandate, even bigger than it was. And it really, I mean, they need to go on an election integrity jihad, burn this whole thing to the ground, figuratively, right? And understand like what's happening in those battleground blue areas. And it's happened across the board. I had Hovde up. I had a poll that had Sam Brown up. Like they probably should have won it because my polls were a point 2 left. And it's disgusting and it's playing out and it's not going away. So the gaslighting has to stop.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating to look at 10 counties in California flip from blue to red. 10 in California. He's got over 40% of the vote in California. I mean, there's so many just big wins for Trump in all of this. The shift was huge. It was resounding. And I was I don't know if you followed Georgia after 2020 and that guy, the Speaker of the House down there, he's passed away now, but Ralston, you talked about redistricting. he redistricted out the election integrity advocates in the Republican Party and gave those seats to Democrats. That's how bad this stuff is.
Yep. The Republican Party is the party of Donald Trump and MAGA, unless you're an establishment Republican politician. I think those are the biggest losers Tuesday. Imagine how bright the light at the end of the tunnel was for those people if Donald Trump had just lost. You can't even imagine how hard they were praying for him to lose to get back to status quo in DC. And there's a new sheriff in town now. So, and I kind of made an offhand account, but think about it. Donald Trump should take sheriffs from the Midwest and put them on all of these accountability efforts, right? I think
that'd be awesome.
This would get cleaned up awful quick, right?
Oh, I love this idea. And he does, by the way, folks, I mean, if you want to talk about transparency and you want to talk about democracy, let me find this here. Not that one, this one right here. So this is the nominees for the people at mahanow.org. So nominees for the people, you can submit a form with the nominees that you want in these key positions. I mean, he's also got another website up as well. And that is, that one's talking about policy proposals. I mean, the Democrats always talk about transparency. Republicans talk about transparency. Trump is actually being transparent and giving you a voice in your country. This is colossal.
Hey, Neil, I'm getting a special call right now.
All right.
From our friends at InfoWars.
Yes, Mark is going to be on with Alex Jones later today. So that's
right now, in fact. So it's really great being here. Thanks so much, Neil.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. You have a great one. Thanks.
Bye.
Folks, so I hope you got so much out of Mark there and what he had to say. And just, I hope you can take heart in just how big the shift was, how radical the shift was, and how we really are winning. We're winning in so many ways. We're winning the culture war even, folks. And that has not happened for the conservatives in a long time. Again, please support my sponsor, Mike Lindell, mypillow.com. We still have the free pillow offer up. Whether you order or don't, you just have to pay shipping and handling. But if you order over $75 and get your Christmas gifts from My Pillow, if you get those Giza sheets for somebody, I am telling you, they will love them. It is President Trump's favorite product, Giza sheets. They also have the Giza flannel, which are wonderful for the winter. But the $14, 98-cent pillows, I mean, all that's still going on. Free shipping on orders over $75 plus the free pillow. Go support Mike. MyPillow.com/lumberjack or mypillow.com promo code lumberjack. But if you are buying pillows, call the 800 number. Get the right pillow for you. 1-800-568-2865. Again, that's 1-800-568-2865. Thanks for joining me on this special stream. Make sure you're reaching out to your senators. In fact, I'm going to pull that in real quick. I'll give you guys some phone numbers you can call right here. So this is contacting the Senate. You need to contact your senators. Tell them no on this. John Cornyn, John Thune, the Johns are out. Rick Scott is endorsed by endorsed by Mike Lee, who I wanted to have go in there. And he is fully on board with the Trump agenda. So 202-224-3121. Again, that's 202-224-3121. Call your U.S. Senator and tell them no on the Johns. You do not want a continuation of Mitch McConnell in the U.S. Senate. That video that I just put out, okay? The video that I just put out, make sure that you share that. It's not because it's my video. I've got a lot of video clips in there that are going to be very good. In fact, I will do this for you right now. Is I'm going to find the actual, what am I trying to say? The link, and I'm going to post it in the chat for you here quickly. And then I'm going to pull this stream to an end, but there it is, breaking. It's called Breaking. He's Not Leaving. Okay. Here's the link. Please share this, share it on all the social media platforms. These clips in here are mind blowing, just about how bad these people are, how opposed they are to Trump. And then they want this big seat at the table as Senate leadership. Okay. We cannot, folks, like our entire agenda is on the line with the Senate leadership stuff. Okay, now I've heard a lot of people talking about JD Vance, and yes, he can take a more active role in the Senate, but we need to make our voices heard now. Now, okay, now is the time, okay, to do that. And you've got to call your senator. You've got to tell him no on Thune and Cornyn. And they're both in ruby red states. I keep thinking about this. Why do we always get these losers from ruby red states like South Dakota and Texas? The reason why is because that conservative, quote unquote, is always going to get the vote because they got the R by their name. Okay. Even Ted Cruz down in Texas is saying he's going to support John Thune. There's a whole list on that, and it's in that video I just shared in the link. So please go watch that video, screenshot that, take that screenshot of all the emails and all the people and how they're voting. This pressure campaign is working. We've got to keep it up. All right. This is how we win. I thank you so much for joining me today. Again, please support the sponsors, Verity Metals and My Pillow. Again, I'll just put the banner up for Verity Metals. My Pillow's up there right now. Verity Metals for all your precious metal needs, 480-717-9081. Matt is very good at what he does. He can take you down the right path, and you can even get your IRA gold delivered to you. Okay. He has a little different setup. You have to call him and talk to him about it because you have to set up storage options and all that. But I'm just telling you, 480-717-9081. Give Matt a call. He's very fair on the pricing on both gold, silver. He has the other precious metals. He can get you anything you want. Okay. But go over there and give him some business as well. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you on the next episode. All right. Peace out, folks.